Hello, everyone. Happy National Science Week. Welcome to the Indigenous Science Experience webinar session, Microscopy and Aboriginal Art, We Are Country and We Are Culture. My name is Joanne Jamie and I'm a chemistry academic at Macquarie University. I'm also the co-director of the National Indigenous Science Education Program, or NISEP, which is based at Macquarie University. It is my pleasure to be the host of this webinar as part of the 2023 Indigenous Science Experience program run by NISEP. This event brings together people who live and work on different lands. I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians from all lands involved in this event. In particular, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land I'm on at Macquarie University, the Wallumattagal clan of the Darug Nation. I would also like to extend my respects to the traditional custodians of the lands on which you are all joining us from this evening. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and all emerging leaders, and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that are joining us this evening. This National Science Week webinar, as part of the Indigenous Science Experience program, is brought to you by the National Indigenous Science Education Program, and we're very grateful for the support of Inspiring Australia and grant funding from the Australian Government. This is a very important program, the National Science Week, and it is through the government funding and Inspiring Australia support that allows us to do events like we're doing tonight. So I'd now like to introduce you to our guest presenters. We are joined today by Aboriginal visual artist Graeme Smith and science communicator and exhibition curator Jenny Whiting. Tonight you will learn of the wonderful science, technology and creativity that has come from the relationships that Jenny and Graeme have forged and his beautiful connection to country and culture. You will see some breathtaking images. If you have any questions during this session for Graeme and Jenny, please place them in the Q&A panel at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will ask the guest presenters the questions and get through as many as we can at the end of this session. We apologise in advance if we can't get through all of your questions, but we'll do our utmost to cover as much as possible that you ask. We're all coming from different locations around Australia, and sometimes our networks can be a little bit difficult, so we ask you to be patient if we have any network issues. So Jenny and Graeme, I'm absolutely delighted that you've joined with us this evening. And I'd like to get you to introduce yourselves, but firstly, Graeme, you are a freshwater man of the Warramunga clan of the Wiradjuri Nation and also from the Wandjayabon Nation. You're a practicing visual artist and an art and cultural consultant. Can you introduce yourself a little bit further for us, please?
Yeah, thanks, Joanne, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for the opportunity to share an incredible experience I shared with Jenny and Navina and the team at Sydney Uni. But firstly, look, I'm on beautiful Darkinjung country up here on the Central Coast. I'd like to acknowledge that this is Aboriginal land. I'd like to acknowledge and recognise the Aboriginal people here still have a very strong connection to country. Pay my respects to the elders past and present. Also, I want to acknowledge my people, the Warramunga clan of the Wiradjuri Nation, also the Wandjayabon Nation. Honour my ancestors, thank my ancestors for their sacrifice and their sharing of knowledge through the years, tens of thousands of years, and recognise those fellows still have a very strong connection to country and a belonging to country. So I'd like to extend that to all the Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people listening tonight and acknowledge your country, where you come from, acknowledge your elders past and present. I hope everyone is well out there on country from where you come from. And yeah, it's just a bit of a privilege for me to be here tonight to share my story and my amazing experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Graeme. Jenny, you're a science communicator and exhibition curator. Can you share a little bit more about yourself, please?
Sure. Well, to start with, I'm here on wonderful Darawal country. My name's Jenny Whiting, and I'd like to acknowledge the Darawal people's ongoing custodianship of the land that I'm on and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and those emerging young ones. I'd also like to extend that respect to all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here tonight. So first, a bit about me. I work for Microscopy Australia, which is a national network of microscope facilities in universities around the country. And so we provide open access for researchers, including artists, to come and use them. So back in the day, I used to work as a biomedical researcher, but after that, I've spent many years working in science communication, with a lot of that heavily based around microscopic images, which are just so inspiring to work with. And people tend to be intrigued and amazed by them, which makes for a lot of really good new connections. And they're a great way in for people to get to the science behind those images. So as part of my work, I've curated a number of exhibitions, including 2 for Microscopy Australia. One of those is Incredible Inner Space, which we put together about 10 years ago. Excuse me. And this exhibition sort of highlights a wide range of image types and subjects. And the reason we put it together was really to engage people with the science behind the images. So the next exhibition I put together, which is more of a focus for tonight's theme, is the Stories and Structures New Connections exhibition, which brings together microscopy of plants, animals, and rocks with 21 Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander artists' responses to those images to make a touring exhibition. And so the aim really was twofold: to engage Indigenous youngsters with science in a sort of culturally safe place, but also to encourage recognition, reconciliation and recognition of that really intense connection to country. And so that's what we'll be hearing a bit more about tonight.
Thank you both, Jenny and Graeme, for those introductions. And I'm really excited about what we're going to hear more about tonight, because we don't often think of the connection between science and technology and art and culture. And yet clearly there's some beautiful, rich connections here. So Graeme, I would love to start with you and ask you to share about your journey of how you came to creating artwork inspired by microscopy.
Yeah, thank you. For me, since 2010, I've been on a bit of a journey to find my connection to country and my culture and stuff. And luckily for me, I started painting and creating and doing lots of things around that sort of space, and did some study for a couple of years and really opened up my mind and my thoughts around what is country and stuff like that. And I like to find different ways to share our stories and what country means to us and stuff. So I'm always looking for something different. And I don't know, one day I was looking at sand that had been magnified under a microscope, and it was incredibly beautiful, interesting, fascinating to see that. And I just I had this light bulb moment where I thought, wow, I imagine if I gathered some material from my country and somehow I was thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I just thought that would be really interesting for me to feel that belonging and stories around that. But it was just, to me, the beauty the closeness that I felt to that specimen of sand and stuff, that it just inspired me to find a way to do that. And I think I approached Sydney University, and somehow I got connected with Jenny, and she probably got sick of me talking about the inspiring things that was going on in my head and all that sort of stuff. And look, I'm just very fortunate that Jenny and Navina and the Sydney Uni give me the opportunity to put on a white coat and look like Dr. Strange and get into this laboratory and bring some material from my country to that. So it was an unforgettable experience, and I can't thank you enough for tonight, because it just takes me back to them years ago when I had this opportunity to do that and experience the things that I saw under a microscope. But it was about that, like tonight's theme, like when we say that we are country and we are cultural, this has enabled me to even go closer to that notion about that, and try to share those things with the public and the viewer, and through my art, in what country means to us. But also, as I looked at things, there's some crazy thoughts going on in my head around, so many stories were popping out, so many ideas, creative ideas about what I could use to not only send that message, but, send a message about caring for country and looking after the environment, how humans really have that responsibility to try and look after it, just like our people have always cared for country and protected country. I think in the modern world, we need to, think about that a little bit. So, that beautiful plant there, just a gum leaf from a tree, the green image, precious. That is the, under a microscope, looking at a simple leaf, what it looks like, and it shares a very powerful story, because I actually disconnected that leaf from its life source. So it's actually dying as I was looking underneath that microscope. And it's fascinating if you could look close enough at the little holes, that some are closed and some are open. And for you guys that don't know much about leaves, well, it extracts carbon monoxide and releases oxygen for humans, for life, for animals and so on to live. So it plays a role in caring for the environment, and how a simple leaf is part of that, and how fragile it really is. So, but also just that connection I'm talking about, and like I said, I've got some crazy ideas, and I thought, well, why don't I go to another level and get my blood magnified and see what that unfolds and what message I can share around that sort of stuff. And we all have the same blood underneath our skin. It's just some fellas are a little bit older, like the Aboriginal people of this country. So it's just so many layers to all the images and the stories around that sort of stuff. But it's just trying to get the public, non-Aboriginal people, to really understand that, we are country, and country is us, and we have responsibility, obligations to care for that. So that beautiful image on the left of a magpie feather, the symbols that I put on there using Photoshop, and some people might think, well, Photoshop isn't very creative, but it is to me, because we're using the technology that's around us to share something in a different lens, in a different way and stuff. I think we just get, I get bored with just seeing the same old stuff. I love seeing the diversity that artists get out there and share different types of mediums and stuff like that. So, that feather is quite a powerful story, because to me, that magpie is sitting up in the tree, and the reflection of a sacred symbol that's tens of thousands of years old is actually attached to that magpie, and it's like a mirror that's reflecting off that magpie. So, it's just got lots of messages the body of work that I did, and I had an exhibition about. So I feel very fortunate that art's opened up some doorways and that, but it really has allowed me to connect very strongly to what country is for me and my culture and that sort of stuff. So it's just been a great journey. And as I said, I can't thank Jenny and Navina and Sydney Uni enough for sending this crazy guy into this laboratory and really understanding the processes around that and the safety and the requirements and the restrictions that a laboratory offers. And I'll never forget the day that I brought in some bark and I had that, like we're talking about something that's as small as your finger, a specimen that's underneath a microscope. And I was looking at this particular bit of bark and there was these tiny little creatures running around on this tiny bit of bark. And it's like, my God. And I just gently or quietly yelled out to Navina, is this all right if we have these little bugs running around on this? And she's like, oh, no, you can't have bugs in the laboratory and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, oh, I started to freak out a little bit and stuff. So we quickly got that bit of bark and put it outside somewhere and stuff. But it was just interesting how the naked eye, how our naked eyes can't see these things, this world that's going on around us that we don't really understand and know much about. So it was just a fascinating thing. And I just, couldn't get to that laboratory as quick as I could because I just knew that I was turning up the next day that something was going to jump out at me and some thoughts and some different creative ideas around that sort of stuff. And things popped out in some of the images. It's just like, we're very spiritual people. I'm a very spiritual person. And, it's the DNA that runs through my blood that enables me to think like that. And I bring it on because I just can't get enough of that, those thoughts and feelings around that. And it's just a big part of our culture. It's that spirituality. And, a lot of that work is spiritual because it's part of a world that we can't see. And just like our spirituality and the presence and the feelings of our ancestors around it, the spirit of country being attached to me right now. And even though I'm not on country, I'm up here on Darkinjung country. So we have that spirit that's with us at all times. And looking at something like that, with just drawing me in a little bit closer, still a long way away from what country means, but it's still a very powerful and beautiful thing. And just seeing, the confirmation of things and how beautiful it is. It's just, I encourage people to look at some of the stuff I have on my website and that, but I've got many other images and stuff. I'm happy to share at any time some of the beautiful, amazing images that Jenny, Navina and myself put together and stuff. So look, it's just been an absolute pleasure to be part of it and just one experience I'll never forget. And doing my blood sample and stuff, boy, that was a process. There was writing, there was paperwork, there was, safety concerns and all that sort of thing. This is, a few years ago. So when, that sort of stuff was, well, before COVID and stuff, but I can't imagine what it would have been like through that. But it was just an interesting, for me, a very interesting learning experience about how microscopic images are formed and stuff. So I hope the viewers understand, because it's not just like a camera taking a picture of something. There has been a lot of time and people involved and the processes around in creating something quite beautiful. So yeah.
Thank you. That was just so fascinating. The images, my favourite's the blood one. I just think it's just so striking. They all are. I love also just thinking, so the fascination after seeing that one grain of sand being magnified, it's just, opened up all these amazing opportunities. So thank you so much, Graeme, for sharing on that. Yeah. Jenny, so I think it'd be fantastic now if you can tell us a little bit about the science and technology that actually makes the microscopy work. And also lead into your aha moments that led ultimately to your exhibitions and working with Aboriginal artists such as Graeme. Thank you.
Yeah, no, pleasure. I hope you can see that. So to get down to the nitty-gritty of the technology behind the microscopes, there's a lot of different kinds of microscopes. Each different kind shows things in different ways. So depending on what you're wanting to look at, affects what choice of microscope you use. So some of them, like the ones you're probably most familiar with from school or uni, usually light microscopes. And so they're often used with stains that you put on a piece of tissue or some cells or plant or whatever to make them show up under the microscope. You can also use fluorescent labels that can tag particular things that you're interested in. And that's, you can see that kind of fluorescence image here. But when you want to get down to higher magnifications than light is possible to give you, you can move to an electron microscope where you have a beam of electrons rather than light. And because of the fact that they have, a beam of electrons has a smaller wavelength than visible light, you can actually get down to much higher magnifications. And so this is a scanning electron microscope here, which is the kind of microscope that Graeme used. And then we've also got the transmission electron microscope, again, which gives amazing images. So let me just step onto like a bit more detail on scanning electron microscopes. So this is where a beam of electrons scans backwards and forwards over the surface of the sample. And it gives this really lovely sort of three-dimensional view, just like you're taking a photo, out your window of everyday things, because the light that you see and that comes back into the camera is bouncing off the surface of the object. So a very similar way. So they're very relatable, these scanning electron microscope images, and they give loads of surface detail. And they can go sort of from, say, a light microscope can go up to about magnifying up to about 1,000 times, whereas scanning electron microscopes can go up to sort of 50,000 or 100,000 times, which, is just amazing, really. And so this is a moth scale, and this is more zoomed in on scale. So these sort of ridges are about 3 micrometers apart. This is a spider bum with, you can just see here the little silk glands. And this is more zoomed in there, where you're getting these threads of spider silk coming out of these little tube-like structures. So you get these amazing images in a scanning electron microscope. So that's pretty cool. And then if we want to have a look at a transmission electron microscope, this is sort of like you have, rather than scanning over the surface, you have a very, very thin slice and the beam goes straight through it. And some structures block it and some structures let it go through. And you end up with these very kind of top-down views of your sample. And it's got a huge range of magnifications. Like this is just an image through a zebrafish, which is, I'm not sure if it's an embryo or a whole adult fish, but it's still very tiny. Only a few millimeters across, and these are lumps of muscle in the side of the zebrafish. And if we move in, you can see you can get a lot more detail. And if we zoom in even more, this is actually an insect muscle, but it has the same kind of structure. And you can see some of you might know of the actin and myosin that are in your muscle that make them contract. And this just shows you right down to the molecular level that these little, the bigger dots in the center here are the myosin molecules, and the little tiny dots that you can barely see are the actin molecules. And you can see this really regular arrangement. So that's, I think, really amazing. But the thing with transmission electron microscopes is that they let you go down, right down to the atomic scale, which I was always taught you can't see atoms, they're too tiny. But now you can, at least in crystalline materials, you can. So these dots are all different kind of atoms in an alloy. So aluminium atoms, and then atoms of copper, zinc, and magnesium. So like that is just like so far beyond what I ever thought you would be able to see with a microscope, but it still amazes me that it's actually possible. So these are what some of the microscopes actually look like. This is a transmission electron microscope at our University of Queensland facility. This is a scanning electron microscope also in our Queensland facility. And there are also these little, what we call benchtop scanning electron microscopes, which are pretty amazing. They do an incredible job. And it's one of these that Graeme used to take his incredible images on. So, and we're going to have one of those. Anybody who's in Sydney on Saturday and wants to pop into the Redfern Fun Day there, we'll have one of these available for people to have a look at and pop some things in. So do come along and join us if you possibly can. So this image, this is a very special image. This is one I've got in my background here. You can see, and this was my aha moment, as Joanne said. So we've got a lot of microscopic images in our archive. And I was going through looking for one for some purpose or other, which I can't remember, but I was going through them. And I came across this one, which I'd never seen before. And it just jumped out at me completely. It's like, oh my goodness. And it reminded me of Aboriginal art, but perhaps not in the way that you might think. It's not like, oh, it's the dot painting. What it said to me, which was these structures here mainly, was the kind of these Wandjina figures that have these, these incredible sort of halo structures that are very from Western Australia. And that's what jumped into my mind when I saw this image. And at that point, I was just blown away and going, look, there's connections here that it would be wonderful to show this kind of microscopic imagery to Aboriginal people and see if there's some kind of connection that can be made. And so the more I looked, I was just like, this is amazing. And I was looking through more images, which I'll whiz through very fast, but just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the images that we had in the collection that just, they just all, then I was seeing, oh, hang on, come on, click, was just seeing amazing things and amazing possibilities within these images. And so some of these ended up in the Stories and Structures exhibition, some didn't, but were there providing inspiration for anybody who wants them. So that's a bit about the technicalities of the microscopy, and a bit about how some future activities came about, which you'll hear about a bit later on. But I'm going to stop sharing that right now. And yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. That was just really fascinating. I mean, firstly, to get the background from the science and technology point of view. As a chemist, I like that we can see right down into the atomic world there. So that's really exciting. But those images, they're just stunning. And I remember in your early stages of starting to put together the exhibition and coming and showing us the images. It's just amazing. And I can see how they can be so inspirational for so many artists. And so, Graeme, I think it would be fantastic to hear actually about an image that led to you producing some beautiful artwork. So would you like to share with us a little bit about this image and the inspiration of it?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, look, Jenny and I talked about me being involved in the exhibition that she was putting together, and there was a few images to choose from, but for some reason, well, I know why I chose this image. It was a specimen from a fish. Can't really remember, Jenny, what the exact image was about, but it was something related to a fish.
Yeah, it was fish eye. Yeah, fish eye.
Yeah, that's right, the eye, yeah. So
Ian may be able to share that, the microscopic image, perhaps.
That would be fantastic if we can get that shared as Graeme's talking to.
Yeah, so it's just something that just popped straight out to me about the river, about fish, and I guess that's their home. So as we know, Aboriginal people, particularly in freshwater countries, lived alongside rivers, so they had fish was an important part of their lifestyle. So, but many years ago, my father, who's now passed away, God bless his soul, but it took me to a place called the Bogan River, where he was born on the riverbank, along with some of his brothers and sisters and my beautiful grandmother, and they lived on a reserve out there. And many years after he grew up and had a great life and stuff, he took me back to his country and to where he spent a lot of his childhood and where he was born and stuff. And he at that time wasn't able to walk very well, and he stayed up in the car. He said, "You go down there and see your old people. Go down there into that river and they'll be down there waiting for you." And I trusted everything he said to me, and I did exactly that. I went down into this river, and it's a very isolated area, no one around. It's in the middle of nowhere. So when I started walking down along the river, I'm walking on the footsteps of our ancestors there, and I started to feel this incredible tightness in my chest and in my body, and I had to stop and reflect for a moment on whether my mind was trying to convince itself that I was with my ancestors or I was on country, and there was this spirit there waiting for me. As I said, my dad indicated that they were waiting for me down there. So I went down, and all of a sudden I heard these children's voices, like it was a playground somewhere nearby. And I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I sort of walked up to the riverbank, top of the riverbank, and thought, well, maybe there's a farmhouse nearby or something like that, but there was nothing around at all. And it's just this laughter of children, beautiful sound of children laughing. And as I said, you could picture a playground, and it was an incredible experience because it's like I was trying to say to myself, okay, well, as I said, am I convincing myself that I wanted to hear those things, or were they actually happening? And I stayed down there like half an hour or something, and the whole time I was there was just this incredible feeling, this spirit, this amazing energy. It was just quite emotional, started to feel quite emotional about it. And, you know, I didn't want to leave that place. I didn't want to forget that moment that was happening there, because I haven't always been connected to my culture and my identity because of certain things but in my life. But I'd heard other Aboriginal people talk about this spirit, talk about this power and this energy and this magic that our spirituality had and has, and I experienced that. And since that moment, I've been trying to find ways to share that, but also create things around that. But you know, I'll never forget it. And it was just what non-Aboriginal people need to understand is that those sort of things are part of our culture, part of our identity, and part of our belonging to country. And I ran into some people a few years ago, actually at my father's funeral, and they were people from that area. We're talking about Trangie here. We're talking about Dandaloo, in the middle of Western New South Wales, where the Bogan River is. And I was talking to someone, they said, "Oh, we've been down there and heard that. And, you know, we've felt the same thing." So there is something alive down there, and it's quite magical, quite beautiful. And I have since that time returned back there, and it happened again. You know, so it's just I just feel very blessed that I'm able to experience those things. And I just hope the public understand that, you know, that country and those experiences and that belonging is very important for us to have that as part of our lives, that empower us. And for many of our people, it's the healing that it enables in their lives as well. So we're looking for our culture all the time for that healing aspect. So you know, art's just one very positive way that it can enable that to happen. And you know, encouraging our young children, our young people to you know, find that belonging to culture and identity and to country, because it will open up positive feelings and energy and thoughts and stuff, but opportunities as well, you know. So it's just you know, seeing that image again and just reflecting about that was just yeah, it just brings home that extraordinary experience I had. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Graeme. Firstly, that image is just amazing with what you got from the fish lens, which we also showed up there, to that beautiful artwork and what it means. And you've actually highlighted very well in talking about that as to why doing this type of work has been so important for you. And clearly you highlighted also its importance for others as well. And I love the fact that you noted there for young people too. And it was really beautiful that you shared so much then. I'd like to also ask Jenny as to why this type of work that you've been doing, the exhibitions, these connections that you've made, are important to you and perhaps to others.
Well, yes, I mean, it's with getting to know Graeme and just seeing his enthusiasm for the microscopy and the discoveries and the connections he was making to his country at the microscopic level was, yeah, it was amazing to see how it was all revealing in a completely new way. And it was really wonderful from my perspective that Graeme was around when I had my amazing aha moments and saw all these images, because first thing I did was to run down and show him, and just to see whether, you know, this was just a crazy idea that just wasn't going to go anywhere. But he, you know, it was a fantastic sounding board, and I was thrilled that he seemed to think it was a good idea, and was very supportive and really keen to be involved himself. And you've just seen the wonderful artwork and the stories and the connection that made for him. And, you know, I think being really buoyed up by Graeme's support, I then approached Lynette Riley, who's Wiradjuri and Gamilaroi academic and artist at Sydney Uni. And she was also really keen on the idea and really supportive and keen to be involved. So those connections were, so valuable. And through Graeme's networks and all through your networks, Joanne, and through NISEP, I was able to approach 21 artists from around Australia who all created new artworks connecting their stories and art with the microscopic visions of related parts of their country. And, you know, that way we were able to create the exhibition, which has toured around parts of Australia. It's up online. And, you know, I think it's really, it's been a really inspiring process. And I want to thank Graeme so much for his support in this whole process, because, you know, just having that at the beginning was just so valuable. And that the stories that unfolded along the way were just amazing. And the connections between the microscopy, the art, and the stories were just, you know, something incredible. And what emerged from what we've just heard from Graeme about his journey and the development of his art, I think was just wonderful. And so I think it's helped to really done our little bit for reconciliation, and hopefully, you know, some of the learning resources and the online version of the exhibition, for those who haven't been able to see it in person, is an ongoing a way for students and the public to connect with the exhibition. And I think it is, as Graeme said, a really spiritual and emotional connection that really helps non-Indigenous Australians, as well as all the Aboriginal communities who have seen the exhibition, have had really positive feedback about it. So it's currently, the physical exhibition is currently on show at the Charles Perkins Centre at the University of Sydney. We're always looking for new venues. So if there's anyone out there who has any connections to galleries or anywhere that would like to host the exhibition, do let me know. But yeah, I think just making all these connections with people like Graeme has just been wonderful, both for me personally, but also to further these exhibitions. And you never know where these things are going to lead going forward. So it's just been a wonderful experience all around.
Thank you, Jenny, for highlighting its importance to you, and also a little bit on how it's important to others. And I think it's a fantastic way of really working towards reconciliation. Graeme, is there anything else that you'd like to add following what Jenny said on the significance to you or others?
Look, I just want to acknowledge Jenny and thank her for the kind words that she just shared with everyone. I know how hard you work on it, Jenny, and your ideas and around that, and you should get a big clap for that, because I think that's an example of this country and how both black and white can come together for the same purpose in trying to understand that there is some problems in this country towards our people. And it's inspiring that there's a lot of great non-Aboriginal people in Australia that are, putting themselves out there to create a great story. And this is a great story of bringing people together to understand, to educate them about, the oldest living culture in the world. But, this is just one example. We're in a modern world, and how we can bring those two worlds together to create something beautiful and magical. But to me, it's the people that go into it. And I'm sure, Jenny, you have a team, an army of people that are working all the time towards exhibitions and things like that. So I think it's just
I wish.
okay. But it's just inspiring for me every day to hear great stories of all Australians coming together to help those disadvantaged people, or those people most vulnerable out there. And for our people, just these days we're wanting to share more about it. There's been a period in our history where that wasn't acceptable, and our people lived in a lot of fear towards that, being victimized and all that sort of stuff. But it's a different world now, and it's just, I really look forward to Jenny's next idea about what that might look like as well, because I know she's very it's close to her heart where our people sit and our culture and stuff, and you, Joanne, and everyone that is out there trying to bring us all together and put us together and make this country an even greater country. I think it's just unforgettable. We have a great spirit in this country. We know that that giving spirit, that we reach out at times when our mates need us and stuff, but there's also that spirit of compassion and understanding about our people. And right now in our history, there's an important thing going on, and I hope that people make the right choice around that and think about, I'm not going to go into it too much, but we all know that something's going on that is history in the making. So look, I just like to say, thanks to Jenny and Navina and everyone once again, because it was just give me lots of ideas and thoughts moving forward. It's helped me with my career as an artist, a visual artist, and just can never ever repay you for that. So thanks so much.
It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you, Graeme and Jenny, for those words. Just a reminder to our audience, if you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A panel. That's at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will be getting to those questions really soon. Now, Jenny, you've already spruiked a little bit on by putting up your email and some other details. I know there'll be much interest from our audience on being able to get more information on both of your programs. And so we've now got here for everyone, both Graeme's website and details with Jenny as well. And I also wanted to ask Graeme if people were interested in more information or connecting with you to even have workshops, for example. Are there things that you do that might be of value to our audience as well?
Yeah, thanks, Joanne. I'll have to put you on commission, won't I? But look, my website there, you can reach out, and yes, I do. I absolutely love doing it, is workshops around art and culture and stuff. So if ever you think that I've got something that you might want to talk about and offer, happy to do that for sure. I am the CEO of an amazing little charity non-for-profit organisation over in Rozelle called Gunawira. So I am a busy man, but we can always find ways to do that. And I encourage people to maybe look at Gunawira, and if you think that there might be some way that you can help, you know, look, we work in 26 preschool communities across New South Wales, and we're all about early intervention, trying to give children their start in their life, particularly Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. But yeah, I won't go into that too much. But look, I'm happy to take you know, information that people want to learn more about me, or contact me through my website. But yeah, I'm sure Jenny, Joanne, if people want to get in contact with me, they can get your email and do things that way. Or I don't want to give my phone number out at the moment, but look, you can just get me through my website. So just appreciate everyone listening tonight, and happy to take questions or try and do anything I can to help in any way. Sharing culture is it's one of my great passions. So.
Thank you so much, Graeme. So we're now going to answer some questions from the audience. And firstly, Jenny, you talked about the possibility of other people, places hosting your exhibition. Can you tell us more?
Well, the idea behind Stories and Structures was very much that it's a touring exhibition to get out to around Australia, to reach as many people, particularly some more remote Aboriginal communities and regional centres where I think it will have a lot of value, as well as being in the big cities where obviously there's a lot of people to reach as well. So far it's been at several venues around Sydney, down in Wollongong, and it's gone over to Western Australia, where it's visited Kalgoorlie and Geraldton, Pinjarra, and then COVID hit. So it's been resting for a little while, but we want it to keep touring as long as it can, and as long as it holds up to reach as many people in the flesh as possible. I mean, it's great we've got it online and the online resources, but it's not the same as really seeing it in the flesh. So we see it as a working exhibition, not as a high art thing that needs all sorts of precious, precise environmental conditions and everything. So, if it's in a church hall or a whatever, that's fine, as long as it's going to reach the people who can benefit from it. Get in touch, and we can book something in and set it off on the road again. So very happy to hear from anybody who's got any thoughts about how we can make that happen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jenny. Apologise, the cleaners are coming through behind me making a little bit of noise. But so, Graeme, your not-for-profit company, can you spell that out for us, please? People are interested in knowing more.
It's Gunawira. It's not my company. I'm just CEO there. But Gunawira is GUNAWIRRA. We're over in Roselle, doing some great things across Sydney and Western New South Wales. As I said, we're just trying to give children a good start in their education and health. We have speech therapists, occupational therapists, and there's many gaps, sadly, in country New South Wales, as I'm sure many people are aware. Even in Sydney, there's long waiting lists to see specialists that can help children or ourselves. So we're just out there trying to bridge that gap a little bit and give children what they need to feel that they belong at school and have a good start to health and education. So important very early on in their lives. So but gunawira.org.au is where you can find out more about us. And great to hear of anyone if you're interested in what we're doing.
Thank you so much. And my behind-the-scenes tech person, also my husband, has gone along and sent everyone the link as well. So thank you for sharing that. Jenny, we have a couple of technical questions. So did you coat the samples before investigation using SEM?
Did I? Well, I must admit, I am not actually a microscopist and I don't actually get my hands on the microscopes, but the SEM images, those ones that I showed would have been coded. Yes, absolutely. The technicality of using electron microscopes is that you have to make them electrically conductive. So you don't get all sorts of nasty flary charging effects. And so if something doesn't naturally conduct electricity, then you do need to coat them with either carbon or some kind of metal coating, just a very, very, very thin layer over the surface to just get the charge going around. So yes, they would have been coated.
Thank you. So this is a question for Graeme. So just wondering, what directions do you plan to take your work influenced by microscopy images in the future? Would you be staying in painting and photography as a main medium, or have other plans?
It's a good question. Look, I'm just looking for something different most of the time. So those images I've done is freshwater country. So I have at some point wanted to do something about saltwater country, close to the ocean, that sort of stuff. But I guess before Jenny wins the lottery or something and retires, I probably should have a chat to her about the possibility of doing some more work. I'd love the opportunity to do more about it because it was just a great experience. But yeah, I'm just doing some stuff at the moment about the caring for country and caring for culture. So I'm doing some artworks around that. But I just go with this spirit that is around me, and I just wander off in this little world for a little while, and then maybe I come back down to earth at some point. But look, I'd never say never about doing that, because it was just a fascinating experience, and to see, you know, lots of different elements in a different way. It's just incredibly beautiful. And yeah, who knows? I'd love to think that I might do something. Some people encourage me to paint about those sort of things, but you know, to me, it's probably more, you know, meaningful capturing something like just those images that Jenny shared tonight. It's just stunning in what it looks like, and we can just, you know, I guess the more we look at that, maybe there's a message there that we might think, well, you know, we could do a little bit better with the way that we looking after the environment and stuff. So yeah, but it's a good question. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. We've now actually almost run out of time, so we're going to wrap up the session. And I just wanted to say, firstly, a big thank you to both Graeme and Jenny. I mean, what you've presented has just been so fascinating. You've taken us on a wonderful journey from that little sand grain, you know, hearing about science, technology, culture, creativity all coming together, really highlighting what the title of the talk said: Microscopy and Aboriginal Art, We Are Country and We Are Culture. For our audience, I hope you've enjoyed this session. Perhaps you may even join us for our other sessions for this week as part of the Indigenous Science Experience. We have a fantastic community day this Saturday at the City of Sydney's Redfern Community Centre. And you can come along between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. and get immersed in Aboriginal science, technology and culture, and meet many amazing scientists, technologists, engineers and mathematicians. Before I end the session, I would like to ask our audience members to please fill in an evaluation survey. This has been sent in chat just then, and will also be emailed to you in the next few days. So this session has been brought to you by the National Indigenous Science Education Program, which is a not-for-profit group. We particularly work with Indigenous youth using science and STEM to empower them to build leadership skills. We receive government funding to be able to provide opportunities such as this webinar session and our Indigenous Science Experience as part of National Science Week. So please fill out the surveys so we can learn from you what works, how we can improve, and to show our worth to enable future events like this to be supported. So I would like to acknowledge that this Indigenous Science Experience event is part of an Inspiring Australia initiative and is supported by the Australian Government as part of National Science Week. Lastly, thank you to all our audience members and have a great night and a great National Science Week. Thank you, everyone.